What is going on, Swoopers? Welcome back to another episode of Swoop. I'm here with the man himself, Brodie Holland. Mate, thank you for taking time out of your day to have a chat with us.
Oh, no worries, Lukey. Thanks for having me, mate. I'm excited to be on and
Uh,
chat all things Magpie.
yeah, man. And look, I wanted to get you on. One, big fan, obviously, and two, you started doing these reviews of the game on your Instagram. And I think they're so insightful, especially coming from, you know, an ex-player who's sort of been there, and you're a coach now. You coached the Northern Bullets a couple of years ago. Now you're coaching Marby, so you're in and about that. First off, why did you want to start doing that, dissecting Collingwood's games?
Oh, look, I think I was just a little bit frustrated the weekend before last, and I thought I'd put a little post up just to give my little spin on it. And I think I hit some crazy views pretty quick for me, like 20,000 views fast. And I thought, oh, look, obviously there's some people out there that want to hear a third party voice,
Yeah.
whether it's someone that's not obviously from within the club, and it's not a player, but it's someone who understands the game and maybe watches Collingwood's games and is a coach in his own right. And I thought maybe there's a bit of an opportunity to do some stuff in around this and add some value out to the Collingwood public.
Yeah, and we're all loving it. I see all the comments, and when I'm posting about it, and everyone's hitting me up to say how good and how much they're sort of enjoying it. I guess so. We'll start with the game against Hawthorn. Just want to get to know your
Yeah.
thoughts, not like tearing it apart, but just
Mm.
it was backs against the wall. It was an elimination
Yeah.
final in July. We just looked shot. To us, it
Mm.
looked like it was out hungered. But what did it sort of look like for you?
Mm. Oh, look, one thing I actually, we're talking about videos that I did the week before last, but I did a 30-minute video. I was that distraught about the weekend. I saw so many different things. And then I realized that, hey, you can only do 15-minute videos and upload them to Instagram. So I had to cut it right back. But the one thing, there was a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One was confidence in games and how you can lose confidence really quickly, regardless of how good you are. And I remember, probably 20 games over the course of my career where you'd go, your subconscious is saying, we can't win today. The umpires are a little bit against us. We're hitting the post 3 times. The ball's bouncing the opposite way. Every touch that the opposition are getting turns to gold. And I kind of felt like there's a little bit about that on
Mm,
the weekend. When you look at it, like Josh Dacos gets done for holding the ball right in front of goals, which is probably there.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong, it's probably there, but it's a harsh call to make when you're 10 metres out directly in front and it's the
yeah,
start of a game. Like, it's a brave umpire to make a decision like that. But then there was 2 umpiring decisions later on where I think I can't remember who jumped on. It might have been Nash jumped on the ball one stage,
yep,
and then Newcomb dived on the ball,
yep.
and everyone's appealing, and they didn't get a free kick. So you saw in your head as a player in those circumstances, you're starting to think maybe this isn't going to be our day, as much as you don't want to think about it.
Mm.
Um, and then you've got obviously the missed shots on goal. They really dent the confidence as well. So you had, I think, right before half time there was Lipinski hit the post. Dacos missed one just before it, and then I think it was McStay the goal before that. So you got 3 shots within a minute, all missed right before half time. 2 or 3 of those go in, and you're back in the game.
Yeah,
So you just feel like things weren't going our way. Now, in the second half, obviously, they tried to open up the game to try and get back into the game and to try and score more heavily. And that's when scores come against. So I wouldn't be worried about the scoreline, which the commentators are saying, oh, they smashed the Pies, won by 66 points. I wouldn't be concerned about the scoreline because that game could have been level pegging at halftime if we had had a bit of luck. And we wouldn't have been playing great, but we would have been in the game if we had, obviously kicked those goals we should have kicked, got a little bit of luck with the umpires, etc., etc. So I just felt like there was a bit of a confidence thing that was missing on the weekend that started from the onset.
yeah,
I don't think we helped ourselves too much. The couple of things that you saw in my video on Instagram were stoppage goals from Hawthorn. And we can't rely on brilliance all the time. We can't rely on our offensive abilities all the time. We had Warple standing all on his own inside 50 at a stoppage. No one rolled up to him. Josh Dacos probably could have got 5-10 metres closer to him and did it. I don't know their setup, so it's really sometimes it's hard for me to comment on some things because I don't know what their system looks like,
Exactly.
and it's
Yeah.
probably the same system that they were producing a lot of wins last year and a premiership last year. So it's hard from that point of view to make comment. But all I know is from a coach, when you're at stoppage, there shouldn't be any players that are free inside 50, or at least you've got enough leg rope that you can get to that player if he gets used. And I reckon that's what caused the first goal of the game. Warple standing on his own. They got it out to him. Goal, easy goal. The second goal was another stoppage goal where three Hawthorn players got on the offensive side, goal side of their opponents, just with a little bit of body work. I just thought we were too man conscious. We were wrestling our man, and we maybe just stand. Sometimes you got to stand off your man and then bump or hit in late. And obviously, I had to learn how to do that being a tagger. And if I didn't do it well, then I was going to get slaughtered by the likes of the Ben Cousins and the Brent Harveys of the world. So you had to be smart with your body work. Sometimes you start early, then you work off your man, and then you hit again late. But if you try and wrestle your man at stoppage the whole time, it's really easy for him to go bang, fend
Yeah.
off, and then find space, if that makes sense. So I think that we're a little bit too sort of man conscious and probably going the wrong way about it at times. So there's a few things there, and I think defensively, well, probably the third thing from a defensive point of view was I just feel like we're ready to spring with our forward with our offensive attack from half back when ball's in dispute a few times. So I think there was a couple of times where you had Noble in a really good position to attack. They won the ball. They were quicker to snap back and go towards their goals. We were just a second or two too late, and then they're gone. Once they get
Yeah.
on the offensive side, goal side of you, and they're quick, like the Wizard and guys like that, they're too hard to stop. So you got to start defensive side. And I know the game's changed where you got to defend rolling forward a bit more now, but wait for the moment till we've got ball in hand and then roll forward, and then get in a good position to defend. I think we're looking to attack just a touch too early. And maybe that's a little bit based on our history and winning games and obviously winning more than our fair share of footy. And we're always looking to attack because we know we're going to win the footy. And at the moment, we're not. So we just have to readjust our starting positions and our ability to defend a little bit more often, maybe from going from 70% attack to 30% defense. We're 50-50, especially early in games. Squash the opposition, find confidence by grinding it out and playing a bit more of a dour game early and then working into the game rather than trying to attack too early and then the game's lost
Get it
before we've
done.
even started,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
something that we were good at. Obviously, last year, win the premiership, but that's something that we were good at all throughout sort of last year, where we would be ready to attack, but we would be doubly ready to sort of get on that defense really quick. And it's all the pressure and all that. We were the pressure pies last year. We've seen it for a little bit now. I've been of the sort of notion that after the grand final, Craig McRae said, we have to sort of evolve. We're going to become the hunted, and which is fair enough. Footy always evolves. You see it firsthand being a coach. But do you think that we've gone too far in a sort of another way? We've had a lot of coaching, not changes, but position changes in the coaching line. With Leopard doing something else, Bolts doing something else. I feel like those first three games that we had of the season, we tried a whole new different tactic that didn't seem to work. And Fly and Maynard came out and said that we have to adjust on the go now because we didn't get that sort of break. Do you see? What do you think is the biggest change if you can pinpoint it from last year to this year? I just feel like there's just something that's just it's just obviously it's very different because we're not that sort of attacking free flowing footy that we love. It's not that sexy footy anymore.
Yeah, I think the game is evolving all the time, not necessarily like it used to evolve where you have these 3 to 4, 5 year patches of like a zone. Years ago, the zone came in, and then there's forward pressing where you defend rolling forward, and you have these things that come into the game and they roll for 5 years, and some things stay in and some move out. I feel like at the moment it's nearly like there's a lot of little shifts every 2, 3, 4 weeks, and things
Yep.
just change dramatically. And you go, oh, I haven't seen that before. Like even when the Richmond started stretching the opposition, where their forwards would head north and stretch the opposition. And try and open the ground up and make the
Yep.
ground big. Whereas, 5 years earlier, they were making the ground smaller on attack and trying to create space over the back.
Yep.
And remember, there was a lot of goals being scored over the back there at one
Yep.
stage, probably 10, 15 years ago. That's not happening as much anymore. So, look, it's really hard to tell what's going on in-house, and sometimes it's hard to
Yeah.
see exactly how they're losing. That's why I like to break down stoppages and go, look, it doesn't really matter what your system is here. Like the basic fundamentals of defence never change. The body work, accountability in defence, your ability to be proactive in defence and roll back a second or two earlier than what we're doing at the moment. I think there's a number of issues and probably contributing to our losses at the moment. Number one, we've had a lot of injuries, and
Yeah.
you can't discount that. No matter what happens, you need to have a pretty good run at it to win a flag and to make the top four. Even Sydney are going to have some dramas now at the moment, sitting on top of the ladder, but they've got Papley out and a couple of others. So they're gonna probably hit a bit of a rough patch potentially. They could lose their third game in a row this week. But I think the injuries, you can hold up the fort for a period of time with younger players and enthusiasm. But eventually they're going to play a bad game or two and they're going to lose you a game. Then when you put your experienced players in that are a little bit underdone, if you put too many in at once, then you're probably going to lose a game or two while those guys are getting fit. But the problem is if you don't have them in, maybe you're not a chance to win because you've got too many inexperienced players in. So it's a bit of a catch-22. And that's why it's really hard for McRae, for Fly at the moment, to make these types of decisions. Do I give him a game in the VFL? All those things have to come into play. And sometimes it's just one or two decisions that you're not really going to know sometimes. Sometimes you can roll in and have no preparation at all, and a player plays really well and helps you win a game of footy and goes, geez, thank God for that. Like I thought he was going to struggle today because he's a bit underdone. And then other times the opposite happens. So you've got that element. And I just also think that pressure as well from guys from the twos. When you look at Collingwood in the VFL, they're second last on the ladder and they're really struggling at the moment. I mean, my old Northern Bullants beat them this week, and that's saying something. This year, sorry. They've got a lot of injuries, so they're playing all these top up kids that probably a little bit inexperienced. And really don't have a lot of depth happening there at the moment because of the injuries, but they don't have a lot of competition for spots in the team. So all of a sudden you've got Markov and Noble in the same back line. And I'm not saying they're not up to it, but I'm saying they were fighting for the same position last year.
Exactly.
So how desperate do you how desperate do you get in the way you train? How desperate are you in the way you defend on game day? Shit, if I don't play my role, if I don't defend hard here, and that comes up in the tape during the week, I'm going to be sitting back in the reserves and Markov comes in and takes my spot. So they're the little things that happen in your subconscious, in your thoughts from a week to week process. But when you sort of get 20 touches a week, I've got my spot in the side. There's a heap of injuries at the moment. I'm probably going to, probably survive for the next 4 weeks, regardless of whether I play well or not, because we've got so many injuries. That's when sometimes bad habits start to form. And it's really hard to coach a team, when that happens. And so hopefully they can shift that mindset. I think it's an easy shift. I think it's I'd be pretty keen for Fly to introduce the a shock treatment spray that he probably hasn't given. Probably a couple of players that need to be shocked into, getting back into gear. But so it's a tricky time. There's no doubt about it. It's a tricky time.
No, 100%. And you talked about the fighting for positions and not having to really do that because we've got all those sort of injuries. Would you, in the next 5 weeks, where like a less than 10% chance to make finals now, would you start if you were there as an assistant coach or coach or whatever? Would you start to make positional changes to look at where players can benefit in 2025, or do you sort of just go, let's fight right until the end?
I think you got to fight right to the end. Look, I'm pretty optimistic kind of a guy, and you just don't know what can happen. I mean, the way we're playing, we can potentially get done by Richmond on the weekend, but they're also a team that's very beatable based on their situation. at the moment. So you just roll in and you find a way to win ugly any old way this week. You get a game hopefully into Cox, another game into McStay. You might get a Schultz and maybe one or two other. McCreary comes back in. You never know what might happen. There's a lot of high quality players out of the team at the moment. You saw what the Bulldogs did in 2016 when they got players back, just before and just after the start of finals, and away they went and won the flag. So
Yeah.
I know it's going to be tough, but I just like I said, I'm optimistic. You win this week, you set yourself up for a big game against Carlton. Let's say we were lucky enough to find a way to win the next two, then all of a sudden you go, shit, this isn't impossible. We win the last three, and we're in. So. Things can change very quickly. You saw early in the year, Brisbane had early in the season, they looked like they were completely shot. And then obviously Essendon played their grand final against us 2 weeks ago and haven't fired a shot since. Everyone's raving about the Hawks at the moment. I just thought they got a good run with the bounce of the ball on the weekend. The umpiring, we were poor. I think anyone would have beaten us the way we turned up on the weekend. So are Hawthorn that good? Yeah, they're a pretty good side. They're a good up-and-coming side. I don't think they're quite what the commentators and the so-called footy reporters of the world are saying at the moment. And I think they will be a great team. But they're likely, I look at their run home, they're probably likely to only win two on the way home, 2 or 3, and they won't make finals if my predictions are right. So it's a topsy-turvy sort of season. You never know what's going to happen. There's some sides like Adelaide that are out of the 8 that are starting to get going. Suns as well are starting to get going. Even some of those lesser known sides like North Melbourne are starting to play a bit better as well. So you never know who might get knocked off. All you got to do is win this week, and then let's just readjust and see what happens. But while you're in it, you got to play it out to the death.
Yeah, look, that's fair enough. And look, when you were playing and you were strutting your stuff and doing your thing, you had games, or like the team had games where it was backs against the wall. It was a loss. What does that can work two ways, right? So like, let's take I know it's a little bit different, but that grand final loss in '03. Does that you were talking about your the sort of mind and being off 5%? Does that spur you on to be better, or can that sort of put you back into your shell for the next game or for next sort of season? How much does that help the mind?
Oh yeah, look, it just depends on the individual. I mean, they're pretty motivated individuals these days that get drafted. Anyone who's sort of a little bit suspect mentally, they just don't draft them anymore.
Yeah,
So you'd like to think with the group that Collingwood got together, if it doesn't happen for them this year, they'll go away, they'll work on it, and they'll come back better. You got to consider as well they played finals the last 3 years in a row, prelim, grand final the last couple of years. You miss like a massive chunk of pre-season where instead of drinking beer, you're training. Like and you're not celebrating, you're getting to work. For me personally, I missed the 2002 grand final. Best thing that ever happened to me in my career. I probably should have been in the team. Mick didn't think I should have. I look back now and go, you know what? I was probably the 18th, 19th, 20th best player. I'll have to be in the best 12 players, 10 to 12 players in the team to guarantee a spot in the
yeah,
side because of team balance. So I went away. We had a trip to Mexico, footy trip. I cancelled that, forfeited $5,000 or $6,000 trip. And I went to Thailand with the missus and I just trained every single day. And I
wow,
was just like literally just obsessed with getting better and going, I'll show these coaches. I was really keen to rock up on day one of the pre-season and knock off the bulk of the playing group in the 2K time trial and show my new rig and just show them I'm built for this and, start to build a bit of trust back within the coaching group. So for some people, for me, it was a good thing.
yep.
So for some people, they go to water, but I would say with the group that they've got a bit of a strong steely mindset, this group. And you'd like to think, if they don't make finals, which is looking likely at the moment, they'll go away and they'll be better for it.
Yeah, 100%. And we talk about, backs against the wall and the mindset. We do take on Richmond, so we have touched on it a little bit. Are you expecting are you expecting not more of the same, but not a super big game plan change? It's Fly's going to be like, look, let's do what we've been doing, do what we've been doing for the last 3 years, and just hit it hard, or are you expecting him to sort of tweak a little bit here and there, besides the stoppages and stuff like that?
Hmm. Yeah, look, I think there might be just some little defensive tweaks. It's just more of a mindset thing, more of a reaction time, more of a, instead of standing 10 meters off your man, let's reduce the leg rope and go 4 to 5 meters. When you get opportunity to hit in a bit harder. When you got opportunity to hold, I wouldn't mind a little spray within the group for a few individuals, because sometimes when you're too nice for too long, that there's no consequences
Yeah,
involved. Usually the consequences involved last year or the year before was that you play twos. Now the consequences really aren't there, because there's not enough quality, enough depth, and too many injuries coming from below. So I don't think there's going to be too much. I think it's more of a mindset shift. They just need to get harder. They just need to get a little bit more defensive. We saw a couple of missed tackles for guys. I thought, geez, he could have killed him in the tackle there. And they stood upright in the tackle and tackled with their arms, and they broke through. I think they went through, one of our most experienced players on the weekend. I thought, geez, that would have been an opportunity to stick your shoulder right in his belly button and put him
yeah.
in the front row of the grandstand, and he actually ran straight through the tackle. I couldn't believe it. So just things like that, and I think they got a scoring shot out of that. And like I said to you before, I talk to my players, and I have done last year when I was coaching the Bull Ants, is I always talk about denting the opposition's armour, and where that was a big thing that I talk about. And how do we dent the armour of the opposition? You're hitting when you go in hard for a contest. The opposition goes, "Wow, shit, they're here to play." That's a little dent in the armour.
Yeah,
When you lay a tackle and you bring a guy to ground, that's a dent in the armour. When you kick a goal, not a point, that's a dent in the armour of their armour. Any little dents in your armour start popping out when you kick a goal, or you lay a tackle, or there's a hard chase, and your armour becomes bigger and bigger. When you got that guy who lays that massive chase down tackle, and the energy goes up, the crowd goes up, and everyone goes berserk, your armour starts to pop out, and that's when your confidence starts to grow in game, and then the spirit grows. And that's what we were doing last year and the year
yeah,
before. We were basing, and you can say we were the same team last year in terms of game plan and all the rest of it, but we were harder, we were more defensive, and where
hmm
our goals off turnovers were through the roof. But we're not turning the ball over because our pressure isn't quite there, our hardness isn't quite there, and we're giving a little bit too much room. If you give them an extra 5 meters and they spring back towards their goals, instead of you tackling that guy when the ball hits the crumb, he's actually having a free shot at goal. And instead of turning it over and having to score down the other end, they're scoring up their end. So they're the little things that I think we've just got to build our game off pressure and turnover again, and rebuild that hard edge. And I think we can. I think we can turn it around overnight. To be honest, I think it's
yeah.
more
Well,
mindset than anything.
yeah, and we saw that before the bye, that Melbourne game, we were decimated with injuries. There wasn't a lot of our senior players in, and that was probably our best
Yep.
game of the season, close to a four-quarter performance. We come out and we just pump Melbourne, and then and that was the pressure pies, and then it's sort of from there it started. Then there was that being down by 54 points to the Kangaroos, and now we've lost
Yep.
the last sort of four. But I agree. I think it can be because it's there, right? It's there in their heads already. They just need to flick that switch.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. I went back and had a look at the games as well, and yeah, the Melbourne game was sensational. Obviously, Petrarca went down, but they've got a good player to replace him. But he's an important player. But we clearly outplayed them that night, and that's why I say the real tricky of, Fly's journey this year is picking the right team week to week based on injuries and how well a young player is going. The young player just drops 10%, 15%. Oh shit, is he on the decline here, or should we leave him in because he helped us win last week
Yeah,
and the week before? Oh no, we'll bring back one of our experienced players. I maybe would have liked if we could hold our experienced players for a week or two in the VFL a little bit longer. Unfortunately, sometimes when they're that type of player that you need desperately, then, a high quality player or a key position player or whatever it might be, like you bring McStay back, probably a week or two earlier than what you need to, because you just need that type of player with Mychek and Cox being out, etc., etc. So it's tricky to get that balance right. There's no question about that. I do think there's enough youth there to build with. At the moment, I think the club's just lost a little bit of confidence through all this, and it's just as hard when the media are peppering you from pillar to post. This is a team that's won a flag less than 12 months ago, and all of a sudden we're no good, and everyone's finished and blah blah blah. It's just injuries, it's confidence, it's compounding effect of the injuries, and it's. We've been put in a precarious situation, and it's up to us to drag ourselves out of it. So I hope we can finish really strong here, like get a Richmond win, hopefully, knock off Carlton, and if we don't even make finals, just knock off 3 or 4 of the last 5, and just everyone goes, yeah, okay, they're a bit better. There's still a little bit of life in Collingwood. They've had 2 draws. They could have easily won both, could have easily finished in the 8 if it wasn't for that, etc., etc., and then you go away and be able to build on that with a full pre-season, building into next year, and make some good decisions at draft and trade and all the rest of it.
And that's something that I wanted to touch on, which is a good segue. Draft and trade. Notoriously, our drafting recently hasn't been super good. You find the little hidden gems and stuff like that. And Graham Wright, Jeff Brown, Craig Kelly, they come out and say that we want to hit the trade period hard. We want to hit the draft, the free agency hard. Is there any sort of players that you see that you go, yeah, Collingwood need him this period and it'll take us to the next level next season?
Oh, look, I think they still need another quality key position player up forward. I mean, regardless of whether you rate Cox or not, he's still 33, 34 years of age, so he can't go forever. McStay's 30, I think, too, or 28, 29, 30. I don't know, but you might get a couple of good years, 2 or 3, 4 years out of him, but he needs someone to support him as well. So we've always struggled for key forwards for some reason. I don't know what the thing is. When we went and got 50,000 midfielders there a few years back, and I'm just going, hang on a minute, don't we need a key position player here? So even if you just sort of held that money, waited another year, and then got a key position player the year after, but I think we need a key position player up forward. Obviously, we need probably another key back to support Darcy Moore if they're going to continue to play Darcy Moore on a third tall or a small, so that he can come third man in the contest. They're going to need 1, if not 2, down there at the moment. So they need a couple of big boys around the joint. I would like them. I think they still need to get a bit quicker. They do have some quick players, the Nobles and the Quainers and guys like that. And, you look at Pendles and Sidebottom, who are absolute superstars of the game. They're actually not that quick, those blokes. We saw Dangerfield run away from Pendles the other night. Take nothing away from Pendles. He's the best player probably I've nearly played with other than Bucks. But, the game is changing dramatically. If you've got those type of players in your team, you need a lot of speed around them. I think there is speed, certainly is speed there, but we need to replace those guys when they're on the way out with similar quality, which is going to be tough, but guys that have, speed, quick disposal, speedy players as well. I'd like to find someone like another De Goey type who's inside, outside, who's flexible enough to go forward, is tough enough in the midfield, someone who's got a bit of pace as well, of that type as well. I think also they're probably singing out for. There's a lot that we need, isn't there? I think we're singing out for another intercept marking sort of third tall back, just to support Darcy Moore down there too. Obviously, Jeremy Howe's been a superstar for a period of time, and he could probably do it for another 12 months. But how much longer can he do it for? He's had a few niggles as well. So someone to replace him as well. It would be nice to have someone that could kick 60 or 70 goals for us in a year, which we haven't had for a long period of time. Mychek's been an absolute star and so consistent over a period of time. But he's 6'2.5", 6'3". He's not a monster. He's a hardworking third tall player. He's given us exactly what we've needed for that period of time, and you can't fault him. But someone who's 6'6" and can move and can obviously kick your 50 plus would be nice. And that bit of consistency where look at Carlton at the moment with the two big boys up front. They have bad games sometimes and they still win by 20 points because, one kicks 3 and the other kicks 5, and you just go, they're just kicking goals out of default because they're good, So, it'd be nice to have one of those. So, I don't know, Lukey, what do you think we need, mate?
But I think it's the losing Nathan Murphy in season. We didn't have the chance to trade or free agency for him because he retired in season.
Yep.
I think that's a big thing. Darcy Moore trying to play two positions, which doesn't really help him. He's obviously in two minds. So I think you're right. I think an intercepting marker. I kind of want Charlie Dean to be that player, and he probably will eventually if he puts on a little bit more size, gets another preseason under him. But I think we probably won't get him. And there's rumors that Hawthorn are going to give Battle $900,000 a season. But I wouldn't have minded Josh Battle just to hold that post down back and let Darcy sort of run free as well.
Yeah, Battle's one I've been talking about a little bit at the moment. Charlie Dean's going to be a good player, but once again, he's 195. So it sounds silly. 195 is pretty tall. It's that 6'4".
I wish,
but 6'4". But you need 200. That's why Frampton's been handy at times for them because he's 200 centimeters. And when you come up against a Lynch or someone like that, he can just sit on them and play a role. The extra height and extra levers are really important. That's why Cox has been, a handful up forward at times for us because 210 centimetres, you can throw the ball in and reset. And, you're going to get a contest, worst case, or they're going to chop the arms and he gets a free kick. Or he takes a mark even better and kicks a goal.
Exactly.
At both ends, you need tall players with the long levers, and if you can put enough pressure on ball, those players become, really, really important, especially behind the footy, to be able to obviously golden fist that ball away or intercept mark and try and get some scores on turnover. So we're just lacking a little bit of height at times at both ends. I'd love to introduce someone that's just hard as a cat's head in the middle. Someone that doesn't get reported every week, but just because it's really hard when you're hard at it these days to avoid being suspended, as you know. But Taylor Adams has been, people don't realise what a bad loss he is to us. I know he had a lot of injuries, but he is ruthless. He was hard at it. He used to get in the face of the I don't reckon we've got too many of those. Maynard's probably one. I couldn't tell you any other player other than Maynard who I'd probably be scared about playing against at Collingwood at the moment. Tell me if I'm wrong, but there's no one really that intimidating in that group. And Adams just added a bit. We know De Goey's tough, but he doesn't play. He doesn't get in their face. He doesn't really intimidate the opposition. He's more of just a gun footballer. But just someone. Hawthorn have got a few little guys that like to get under your skin now. They've added to the mix, and it builds energy. It does. It really does.
Yeah, and look, Brodie, just before we leave you, and thank you so much for jumping on, your quick predictions for the rest of the year. How do you sort of see us playing out?
Oh, geez, it's just really hard to predict at the moment, isn't it? My gut feeling is we get a really good response this weekend and we beat Richmond. I don't necessarily think we'll win by much, but I think we'll find a way to get over the line. Then I think it's anyone's game against Carlton because they're just always those type of games. Now, if we can find a way to win that, I reckon I wouldn't be surprised if we can find a way to make finals. Now, if we lose that game, we're done. We're done completely because you start to get McCreary back, Schultz back, Cox back, all these players back. The twos will start to play a bit better and maybe get a win or two before the year's out. The place will generate a bit of excitement. The guys will see a real challenge on their hands to go, been in this position before. How good would this be? You've got some sides. Who do we play again after? We've got Sydney. Imagine Sydney might be. They might be a bit depleted by the time we get to that game. Who knows?
Exactly
Brisbane's
right.
at the MCG. We play Brisbane at the MCG. As we know, they're big games. They don't like playing in the MCG. And then who we got the last round, Lukey?
Melbourne.
We've got
Melbourne.
So Melbourne, Melbourne have got a few players out. They've got similar problems to us at the moment. So who knows which way that can go. And like I said, mate, I'm pretty optimistic. I'm probably a bit more optimistic than you by the sounds of it. But you just never know. Funny things have happened in footy. So win all 5 and things can happen, and you never know what might happen in finals. So hey, mate, we can dream a little bit, can't we?
We can, 100%. Brodie, thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really appreciate it. Like I said off screen, 20 years ago, I was watching you run around the MCG, so it's a privilege to be able to chat with you. I'll keep posting your stuff up. Find him. I'll put all the links to your Instagram down below. Thank you so much, mate. I really do appreciate you taking the time.
Mate. Thanks for having me on, mate, and go the Pies.
Go the Pies. See you, mate.
See you, champion.
Yeah.